was a quiet Wednesday evening in the sleepy suburb of Crestwood, the kind of place where neighbours knew each other's names, where front porch lights burned low, and the hum of daily life masked the darkness lurking beneath the surface. For 27-year-old Emily Harper, the night began like any other an ordinary dinner, a few messages with friends, and the soft glow of her phone as she settled on the couch. Emily's life, by all accounts, was typical. A graphic designer by day, a devoted sister and friend with dreams that seemed just within reach. But beneath her calm exterior, there were fractures, tensions in her relationship with her boyfriend, strange encounters with a man who had recently begun following her online, and the creeping feeling that something wasn't right. At 9:43 p.m, her phone buzzed. A text. Not from her boyfriend, not from friends, but from an unknown number. The message was chilling in its simplicity. "I know where you are." Emily's fingers trembled as she stared at the screen. The room suddenly colder shadows lengthening in the corners. She typed back, heart racing, "Who is this?" There was no reply. Minutes later, another message popped up. "Stop ignoring me." Panic fluttered in her chest. She glanced at the front window, then the back. No sign of movement. Her breath hitched. She considered calling the police, but hesitated. Was this some cruel prank? Then at 10:05 p.m, a single word appeared on the screen, stark and desperate: help. It was Emily's last text. Her phone went dark soon after the battery dying, as if fate itself conspired to silence her. By midnight, when she didn't respond to repeated calls and messages, her roommate Jessica grew worried. Jessica had come home early from work, expecting to share a late-night cup of tea and a movie. But Emily's bedroom was empty. The door ajar, the scent of lavender still lingering faintly. The police were called just before dawn. The investigation began in earnest, a missing person in a town that prided itself on safety. But the deeper the officers dug, the more the story twisted into a labyrinth of secrets, lies, and shadows from Emily's past. Surveillance footage from the street showed Emily walking home from a nearby cafe alone, composed unaware she was being watched. But then a figure appeared in the background, blurry but distinct, tailing her steps with unnerving patience. Detective Marcus Leary, a man hardened by years on the force, took the lead. His gut told him this wasn't a random disappearance. Emily's last text wasn't just a cry for help, it was a beacon in the dark, a warning before something irreparable happened. But who had sent that message, and where was Emily now? As Marcus pieced together her last known movements, he uncovered a chilling pattern. Other women in Crestwood had vanished without explanation. Over the past decade, their cases cold and forgotten. Had Emily stumbled into the same nightmare? The clock was ticking and the shadows around Crestwood were growing longer. Suddenly a call came in. Emily's phone had been located, but the place it pinged from was a location no one wanted to imagine: the edge of the abandoned Miller's Woods, a place steeped in rumours and fear. Detective Leary stood at the threshold of the forest as the sun began to rise, knowing this was only the beginning. Whatever waited inside those trees held the key to Emily's fate, and the truth would be darker than anyone expected. The early morning mist clung to the twisted branches of Miller's Woods, swallowing sounds and shapes alike in a thick, suffocating silence. Detective Marcus Leary stood just beyond the forest's edge, eyes fixed on the spot where Emily Harper's phone signal had last pinged a crumbling, forgotten cabin swallowed by overgrown weeds and shadows. He wasn't alone. A small team of officers fanned out cautiously, flashlights piercing the gloom, every crack of a twig sending spikes of tension through their veins. This place had been the source of countless local legends, abductions, disappearances, even whispers of a cult lurking in its depths. The kind of stories told to frighten children, but that never quite left the adults alone. Leary took a deep breath. The air smelled damp and rotten, with a faint metallic tang he couldn't place. As they approached the cabin, a sickening sense of dread settled over him. Inside, the world was different. The floorboards creaked underfoot, and a thin layer of dust coated everything, except for a single unsettling detail: fresh footprints leading deeper into the woods, away from the cabin and into the underbrush. Then the first discovery: a torn scrap of fabric snagged on a low branch, the deep indigo of Emily's favourite jacket. It was fresh, no more than a day old. Heart pounding, Leary's radio crackled to life. "Detective, you need to see this," came the voice of Officer Daniels, his tone tight with urgency. Leary hurried over to find Daniels kneeling beside a shallow hole partially hidden beneath leaves and broken twigs. Inside lay a battered smartphone, its screen cracked but still intact. The device belonged to Emily. Leary lifted the phone, hands trembling slightly. He scrolled through the last messages, eyes narrowing as he spotted a string of texts from an unknown number. They weren't threats this time, but demands. "You can't hide forever. Meet me tonight, or it gets worse." The implication was clear. Emily hadn't just been scared. She'd been trapped in a twisted game. Suddenly a sharp noise cracked through the stillness, a shout from deeper in the woods. The team spun flashlights, sweeping the trees. A figure darted between the trunks, too quick, too silent. "Stop, police," Leary called, sprinting forward. But the figure disappeared into the shadows. Back at the cabin, forensic teams combed the area for clues. A chilling detail emerged, a small pool of dried blood beneath the floorboards. There was no sign of Emily herself, but the scene suggested a struggle had taken place. Meanwhile, Leary's phone buzzed again, a call from Emily's boyfriend, Josh. His voice was raw, frantic. "I swear, Detective, I didn't do anything. Yes, we'd been fighting, but I loved her. I was home all night, you have to believe me." Leary's gut twisted. Josh's alibi was shaky, but didn't quite break. As the day turned to night, another discovery emerged from the shadows, an old diary belonging to Emily hidden beneath her mattress, filled with coded entries about a man she feared but refused to name. Who was the mysterious figure stalking her? Why had Emily sent that desperate last text, and had the past just caught up to her? Then, as if the forest itself was watching, the team's radios went silent. No response, just static, and in the distance, faint but unmistakable, a woman's scream. The scream tore through the stillness of Miller's Woods like a knife shattering the fragile calm that had settled over the search party. Detective Marcus Leary froze for a heartbeat, then shouted into his radio, his voice urgent but controlled. "Everyone report in." "Where's that coming from?" Static answered. The forest seemed to swallow all sound, save for the lingering echo of that desperate, chilling cry. Leary motioned for the team to follow him, the beam of his flashlight cutting jagged paths through the dense underbrush. The woods closed in around them, trees gnarled and ancient, their branches like grasping fingers in the fading light. As they pressed forward, Leary's mind raced. The scream was unmistakably female, raw with fear, pain and urgency. Was it Emily or someone else? The thought clawed at him, each step heavier with dread. Suddenly Officer Daniels stumbled over a hidden root, crashing to the ground with a grunt. As Leary helped him up, his flashlight caught something on the forest floor, a small blood-stained handkerchief. It was embroidered with the initials E.H. Leary swallowed hard. "This has to be her," he muttered. They followed the faint trail of blood deeper, the trees thinning out near a shallow ravine. There at the bottom lay a woman's coat draped over a jagged rock soaked through with crimson. Leary's radio buzzed to life again, breaking the tense silence. "Detective, you need to get back here." The voice was urgent, almost breathless. "We found something at the Harper residence." Leary's jaw tightened. "What is it?" "Photos on her phone, recent ones, of a man watching her at her workplace, and there's a note." He felt his pulse quicken. "What kind of note?" "It's a list of names, dates, locations, and one that circled tonight, Miller's Woods." Leary's grip on his flashlight tightened as he whispered she knew this was coming. The woods seemed to press in on him, shadows folding like secrets. Then a sudden movement, branches snapping nearby. Leary spun just in time to see a figure darting away. "Wait!" he yelled, but the shadow vanished into the night. Back at the Harper house, forensic analysis began on the photos Emily had taken, evidence of someone lurking in the background during her everyday life. A man always just out of focus, but unmistakably there. The list, cryptic and threatening, suggested Emily had been tracking this person, trying to anticipate his moves. She wasn't just a victim, she'd been fighting back. Yet the question remained, who was this man, a stranger, someone closer? And why had Emily's last text simply said, "Help"? As night fell over Crestwood, the detective realised the terrifying truth. Emily's disappearance was only the first act in a dark story that had been unfolding far longer than anyone knew. And somewhere in the shadows beyond the trees, the Watcher was still waiting. Detective Marcus Leary sat alone in the dim light of the precinct's interrogation room, the weight of the case settling like a stone in his chest. The photos from Emily's phone lay before him, each one more unsettling than the last. A man's shadowed figure lurking at the edges of her life, watching, waiting. The list Emily had scrawled was cryptic, but chilling names, dates, and the ominous note marking Miller's Woods. It was a breadcrumb trail pointing to a predator who had stayed hidden for years. Leary's thoughts were interrupted by the sharp knock at the door. Josh Harper, Emily's boyfriend, was brought in for questioning. His face was pale, eyes darting nervously. Leary studied him silently before speaking. "Josh, where were you the night Emily disappeared?" Josh swallowed hard. "I told the dispatcher. I was home. I didn't hurt her." Leary leaned forward, voice cold. "We have reason to believe Emily feared for her life. She sent a text, just one word, help." "Do you know why?" Josh's eyes darkened with a mix of guilt and frustration. "We've been fighting. She was scared, but not of me, I swear." The detective nodded slowly, but the unease lingered. Outside the room, officers sifted through Emily's digital footprint. A sudden breakthrough came when cyber forensics uncovered a hidden folder. In her cloud storage, encrypted videos and messages exchanged with an anonymous contact. Leary played one clip. A distorted voice warned Emily to stay quiet, threatening dire consequences if she spoke to anyone. Her response was defiant, her voice trembling but firm. "I'm not afraid anymore." That night, the investigation took a dark turn when a tip arrived from a local woman. She claimed to have seen a suspicious man lurking near the woods on the night of Emily's disappearance. His description matched the shadow in the photo's mid-40s, unkempt with cold, calculating eyes. The woman's testimony led the police to a rundown motel on the outskirts of Crestwood. Inside, they found a room covered in disturbing evidence photographs of several women maps with routes to Miller's Woods, and a journal filled with obsessive notes. But no sign of the man. As the team searched, Leary noticed a fresh set of footprints leading away from the motel toward an abandoned train yard. The night air thickened with tension. Leary knew they were closing in, but every step forward seemed to pull them deeper into a twisted web of secrets. Then the most haunting discovery of all, hidden beneath a loose floorboard in the motel room, a small box containing a battered, blood-stained locket. Inside was a faded photograph of Emily. Someone had kept her close. And the question that clawed at Leary's mind was no longer if Emily was alive, but if she ever would be found. The blood-stained locket was more than just a relic. It was a silent scream etched in metal and time. Detective Marcus Leary turned it over in his gloved hands, the faded photograph inside almost unrecognisable, worn by years of neglect or obsession. The weight of it seemed to press down on the entire case the evidence that Emily had come dangerously close to the man watching her. Back at the precinct, forensic analysis revealed a faint fingerprint smudged on the locket's edge. It didn't match Josh Harper nor any records in the police database. The unidentified print was a ghost, an elusive fragment of the man behind Emily's torment. Leary's team expanded their search around the train yard following the footprints. The cold wind whispered secrets among the rusted rails and broken ties, each step echoing like a heartbeat. Suddenly, beneath a derelict freight car, they found a hidden compartment. Inside lay a bundle of letters handwritten and yellowed with age. They were addressed to a woman named Claire, each one filled with obsessive declarations, threats, veiled in twisted affection and references to keeping her safe. The final letter was scrawled in a frantic hand. "She knows too much. I must end it tonight." Leary's stomach dropped. The note was recent, less than a week old. Meanwhile, an unexpected break came when a local informant surfaced, pointing the investigation toward a man named Victor Malkovich, a name whispered in fear among the town's dark underbelly. Victor was a drifter known for stalking and controlling women, but never charged. His whereabouts were unknown. Leary ordered an all-points bulletin. They needed Victor before it was too late. That same night, the detective revisited Emily's apartment. Her room was untouched, but for a single detail he had missed before a worn photograph taped to the inside of her closet door. It showed Emily with a young girl smiling brightly. Written on the back in delicate script, "For you, Claire." The pieces clicked. Claire was Emily's sister. Leary tracked down Claire, who was living in a nearby city unaware of her sister's nightmare. Their reunion was a mix of tears and anger. Claire revealed that Emily had confided in her about the Stalker, but refused to involve the police, fearing the man's wrath. "She thought if she ignored him, he'd go away," Claire whispered, voice breaking. But he never did. As dawn broke over Crestwood, Leary knew time was running out. Victor Malkovich was still out there watching, waiting. And Emily's last text, the desperate plea, was now a race against darkness. Then a call came from the evidence lab, another discovery on Emily's phone. A GPS ping minutes before her final message traced to a location no one expected, an old community centre, long closed and slated for demolition. Leary's pulse quickened. Could Emily have gone there for safety? Or was it a trap? The detective led his team toward the crumbling building, unaware that the shadows inside were alive, and that the nightmare was far from over. The community centre was a shell of its former self. Graffiti sprawled across crumbling walls, broken windows letting in shards of pale moonlight. Detective Marcus Leary approached cautiously, flashlight, cutting through the darkness like a scalpel. The air was thick with dust and the faint scent of decay. Inside, the silence was almost unbearable. Every step echoed hollowly, the floor littered with debris. Leary's team spread out eyes, scanning for any sign of Emily or her captor. Near the old stage, a rusted locker stood half open. Inside, they found a scattering of personal items, a scarf, a cracked phone charger, and a notebook belonging to Emily. The pages were filled with hurried notes, names crossed out, desperate plans scribbled in the margins. One entry stood out: "If anything happens to me, look for the warehouse by the river." Leary's mind raced. The warehouse was infamous in Crestwood, used for illegal activities but rarely policed due to its isolated location. Suddenly a noise shattered the silence, a muffled cry coming from below the floorboards. The team pried up the wooden panels to reveal a small dark crawl space. Inside, trembling and weak, was Emily. Her eyes widened as the flashlight beam fell on her face. She was alive, but barely. Leary knelt beside her, voice soft but urgent. "Emily, we've found you. You're safe now." Tears streamed down her cheeks as she whispered, "He's still out there. Victor. He's worse than we thought." Emily's words unravelled a nightmare of manipulation, violence, and years of stalking. Victor Malkovich had been terrorising not only her, but a string of women across several states, hiding in plain sight. But the relief was short-lived. As paramedics tended to Emily, Leary's radio crackled with an alert, an anonymous tip placing Victor near the river warehouse. The team moved swiftly, surrounding the decrepit building. Inside, they found evidence of recent occupation, food wrappers, fresh footprints, and a chilling collection of items belonging to other missing women. Then in the back room, a figure lurked motionless, watching. "Victor Malkovich, police don't move," Leary commanded. The man turned slowly. His eyes held a cold, unyielding madness. As officers closed in, Victor smiled, a thin, cruel curve that promised this story was far from over. Suddenly, Victor lunged toward a hidden trapdoor beneath the floor, disappearing into the darkness below. Leary and his team chased after him into a maze of tunnels where secrets darker than the night awaited. And somewhere in those shadows, the truth about Emily's tormentor was about to be uncovered. The tunnels beneath the warehouse were cold, damp, and suffocating walls slick with moss and shadows that seemed to swallow light whole. Detective Marcus Leary's flashlight bobbed ahead, barely piercing the thick darkness as he and the team navigated the claustrophobic maze. Every step echoed ominously, each breath heavier with the weight of unknown horrors. Victor Malkovich's sudden disappearance into the labyrinthine underworld was no accident. He knew these tunnels intimately, using them as a secret refuge, a prison for his victims, and a twisted fortress from the world above. As they pressed deeper, Leary's radio, buzzed with static communication, faltered in the maze. The team split to cover more ground tension crackling in the stale air. Leary's heart pounded as he rounded a corner to a faint, desperate sound, whimpering barely audible. He quickened pace, following the noise, until he stumbled upon a crude holding cell carved into the rock. A woman huddled inside, bruised and weak. "Emily," he whispered. She shook her head faintly. "No, someone else." Before he could ask more, a trapdoor slammed shut behind him. The team's voices disappeared into silence. Leary's radio crackled with frantic calls, but the signal was lost. Trapped alone in the dark, Leary's mind raced. Victor wasn't just a stalker. He was a predator who thrived in control and cruelty, and this maze was his kingdom. Hours seemed to stretch endlessly as Leary searched for an escape, fighting off rising panic. Outside, the rest of the team combed the surface, discovering evidence of more victims, torn clothing, personal effects scattered near hidden entrances. Suddenly a breakthrough, a notebook recovered from Victor's belongings, detailed chilling rituals, patterns of abduction, and a disturbing fixation on Emily, more than just obsession. It hinted at something deeper, darker. Meanwhile, in the holding cell, the frightened woman began to speak, revealing pieces of a horrific puzzle she'd been captive for months, forced to watch as Victor's cruelty escalated. Back in the tunnels, Leary finally found a narrow passageway leading upward. Crawling through the suffocating earth, he emerged just as backup arrived, guns drawn, ready for a final confrontation. But Victor was gone. Only a single clue remained, a hastily scrawled message on the wall in smeared blood. This isn't over. Leary's resolve hardened. Emily's nightmare was only the beginning, and as the sun rose over Crestwood, the town braced for the darkness yet to come. The message smeared on the tunnel wall was more than a threat, it was a promise. Detective Marcus Leary stared at the ominous words, the damp chill of the underground pressing down like a tomb. Victor Malkovich had slipped through their fingers once again, but his shadow stretched long and dark across Crestwood. Back at the precinct, the investigation took a sinister turn. More victims surfaced, women with connections to Victor's past, all vanished without a trace. The tangled web of abuse, control, and terror revealed itself in painful fragments, shaking the community to its core. Leary dived into Victor's history, uncovering a string of accusations, all dismissed or forgotten, buried under bureaucratic apathy and victim silence. He learned that Victor had once been a respected member of the town, masking his cruelty behind charm and manipulation. Meanwhile, Emily's recovery was slow and painful. Haunted by trauma and guilt, she struggled to reconcile the horrors she endured with the person she was before. Her sister Claire stood by her side, a fragile lifeline in the storm. One night, Emily confided in Leary he wasn't just stalking me. He wanted to break me, erase everything I was. But I'm still here. I have to be. The detective's resolve deepened, fueled by Emily's courage. But Victor's reach was vast, and his network of enablers and silent witnesses complicated every step. Then a shocking twist, an anonymous package arrived at the station. Inside was a USB drive containing footage from hidden cameras Victor had planted around Crestwood, capturing moments of everyday life, and a chilling confession. On the screen, Victor's gaunt face appeared voice-cold and calculated. He boasted of his control, his power to destroy lives, and vowed to continue his reign unless stopped. Leary realised the fight wasn't just to catch a man. It was a battle to shatter the silence, the fear and the darkness that had allowed Victor to thrive. As the town braced for the final confrontation, a new ally emerged, someone who had been watching Victor closely, waiting for the right moment to strike. But trust was fragile. Every ally could be a foe, every truth could be a lie. And with Victor's shadow still looming, Emily's last text echoed louder than ever. Help. The desperate plea that had started it all was now the battle cry of a town determined to survive. The anonymous ally was a woman named Sarah Bennett, a former victim who had escaped Victor's grasp years before, but chose silence out of fear and shame. Now seeing Emily's survival sparked a fire within her, a need to confront the darkness that had haunted their lives for far too long. Sarah's insider knowledge became a crucial weapon. She revealed Victor's patterns, his hideouts, and the twisted psychology behind his obsession with control. Together, she and Detective Leary mapped a plan to trap him once and for all. But the closer they got, the more dangerous the game became. Victor sensed the noose tightening. He sent chilling messages, each one more brazen than the last photos of Emily's home, cryptic threats, and a final warning. You can't save her. She's mine. Emily's trauma deepened. The nightmares returned and the walls of her world seemed to close in. But she fought, leaning on Claire, Sarah and Leary. I won't let him win, she said through tears, voice trembling but fierce. The climax built to a tense cinematic showdown at an abandoned factory on the outskirts of Crestwood, a place Victor had once called home. Leary, Sarah and a tactical team waited in silence, hearts pounding. As Victor emerged from the shadows, wild-eyed and desperate, the confrontation was raw and brutal. Victor's madness twisted the encounter, turning it into a psychological war as much as a physical one. Just when it seemed Victor might escape again, Sarah stepped forward, confronting him with a strength born from years of survival. The moment was electric, his grip faltered and officers moved in. Victor Malkovich was finally taken into custody, but as Leary watched him led away, a haunting doubt lingered. Had they uncovered all his secrets? Or had some darkness slipped through the cracks? Emily, fragile but unbroken, began the slow journey toward healing, surrounded by those who refused to let her fade into silence. And the town of Crestwood, scarred but resilient, faced a new dawn, one where whispered fears gave way to whispered hope. Victor Malkovich's arrest sent shockwaves through Crestwood. The man who had haunted Emily, Harper and countless others was finally behind bars, yet the town's wounds ran deep. Detective Marcus Leary watched the news cameras flash as Victor was led into the courthouse, his cold gaze locked briefly with Emily's. A silent promise of reckoning passed between them. Emily's recovery was neither linear nor easy. With Claire and Sarah by her side, she began confronting the shadows of her past, each therapy session peeling back layers of fear, shame and trauma. But through it all, she held on to the fierce ember of survival that had kept her alive. The court case that followed was harrowing. Victor's defense twisted facts, tried to discredit victims and weaponize silence. But the truth, painful, raw and undeniable, prevailed. Testimonies from survivors, including Sarah's, painted a picture of cruelty and control that no jury could ignore. On the day the verdict was read, a heavy hush fell over the packed courtroom. Guilty on all counts. Outside, Emily stepped into the sunlight. For the first time in months, the weight of her ordeal slowly lifting. She looked at Detective Leary and whispered, "Thank you for not letting me be forgotten." Leary nodded, voice thick. "You never were." Crestwood began to heal. The shadows Victor had cast no longer had power over its people. Neighbourhood watch programs, support groups for survivors, and community awareness initiatives flourished, a testament to resilience born from pain. Emily found a new purpose: advocacy. She spoke openly about her experience, turning her story into a beacon for others trapped in silence. Her message was clear: survival is possible and help is out there. As the sun set over the quiet streets, Detective Leary closed the file on the case labelled Harper. But the echoes remained, a reminder that darkness could always return, but so could hope. If you've been moved by Emily's story, please share it to raise awareness. Subscribe for more true crime stories that uncover truth and honour resilience. Your voice matters. Thank you for listening.